Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's video. Tomahawk steak. Here are most of the ingredients. This was fairly simple, not a whole lot to it. I will leave the recipe in the description box below. Here is our steak. Now we went ahead and cleaned up the bits and pieces off the bone, patted this thing dry, and now we're going to get it prepped to put on the smoker. Now this is not your typical run-of-the-mill, add salt and pepper, throw it in a hot skillet with some butter and garlic and herbs and baste it and throw it in the oven type of thing until medium rare. There's a million videos out there for that. We're going to do something a little bit different. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of homemade hot sauce to the steak just as a binder. Go ahead and use like a typical Louisiana-style hot sauce like Crystal or something like that. Stay away from those crazy, ghost pepper style hot sauces. We're not trying to add a whole lot of heat to this. We're just trying to add a little bit of flavor and just have a binder for our seasoning to stick to. Now that we have this hot sauce on here and rubbed in this steak, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of kosher salt to this. Now I'm also going to season this with my West Coast Cajun Cuisine's Creole seasoning, which is low in sodium and which is also why I'm adding some of this salt. Now if you want to get your hands on some of that seasoning, there'll be a link in the description box below to the website where you can go ahead and purchase it. Now if you're going to go ahead and use some other type of Cajun or Creole seasoning, be mindful of how much sodium's in there. You may have to skip this step depending on what you use. Just be careful. Now this is a big steak, so we went ahead and seasoned it liberally on both sides and around the edges. And now we're just going to let this sit on the counter and come up to room temperature for about an hour. Now there's two things happening here. We're letting this come up to room temperature so that it will cook evenly all the way through. And plus the salt and seasoning is going to pull moisture out of the steak. Then eventually it's going to suck that moisture back in. And when it does, it's going to pull in all that flavor with it. Now while our steak was coming up to room temperature, we got a smoker set up to cook at 275 degrees. We put a couple of hickory wood chunks on there, and now we're going to put this on the middle rack and let it smoke until it comes up to our desired temperature. Now that the steak is out there smoking, let's go ahead and make a little Cajun compound butter. Now put an entire stick of butter into this bowl, threw it in the microwave and melted it. Now we're going to add our hot sauce, our Creole seasoning, and I have some ground thyme and ground oregano that I'm going to put in here. I find that works a lot better. Some dried parsley flakes, some garlic. We're going to get this well mixed together. And look, as it cools, it's going to start to solidify, right? So about every 5 minutes or so, just come in there, give it a little whisk, make sure everything stays well incorporated as it gets back to a nice solid butter. Now after about an hour, the center of my steak has come up to 125 degrees or so. Now I'm going to pull it off and let it sit for about 5 minutes. Now I've already had my Weber kettle set up on the side here with some ripping hot coals right in the middle, and I'm going to set that steak right over the top of those coals. Now after about 45 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and check the steak. We're going to give it a quarter of a turn and let it go about another 45 seconds. I spent about a minute and a half total on this first side. Now we're going to flip the steak and do the whole process again. Our steak is done. I pulled it off the grill. I let it rest for about 20 minutes. Now we're going to top it off with that wonderful compound butter we made earlier. Man, this is looking phenomenal. I'm going to go ahead and cut this bone off and sneak me a little piece here, and it is delicious. Make sure you try this recipe. It is phenomenal. Look, if you haven't already and you'd like to subscribe, click here. If you want to check out another video on the channel, check out this playlist, or YouTube thinks this might be the video you want to watch. Either way, click one of those and I'll see you there.